Good morning, everyone. Really nice to see the turnout this morning. Welcome to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS. I'm Jennifer Cook, and I direct the Africa program here at CSIS. We're delighted to be co-hosting today's event with the CSIS Europe program, which is directed by Heather Conley. And I want to say a big thanks to my colleague, Richard Downey, and to the Malian Embassy for helping to put this event together, as well as to Katrine Hager and Boris Tukas in the Europe program. I'll explain the translation in a moment. We'll have English to French for the ministers simultaneously, and when the ministers, the Francophone ministers speak, it will be consecutive translation. So bear with us, it's a little ponderous, but we think it should go well. Today's event on the joint force of the Group of Five for the Sahel, or the G5, could not be more timely, and we are very grateful to our distinguished guests for joining us here in Washington to discuss the impetus and the development of the initiative, as well as what they see as the eventual trajectory and outcome, and some of the concerns and challenges that they think they might face. The October 4 ambush in Niger that killed 4 U.S. Special Forces and 5 Nigerian soldiers has brought newfound attention to the Sahel, to the expansion of U.S. engagement there, and to the violent extremist groups that have proliferated. The problem is not new, and while the death of 4 U.S. servicemen is tragic, we have to recognize that militaries from all of these states have suffered profound losses, as have civilians from the region. Nonetheless, the ambush has sparked a useful debate in Washington on what exactly the U.S. role should be within that region. There is some danger that this newfound attention will undercut a well-considered, comprehensive strategy on the Sahel that balances the military and security components with perhaps the more difficult need for diplomatic pressures and incentives on the states of the region and the development investments in economic growth and inclusion and economic opportunity and in good governance and strong national institutions. It would be a mistake to hastily ramp up already significant U.S. military presence, or to move to a more aggressive or kinetic posture without fully understanding the local complexities on the ground, the multiple drivers and motivations of extremist groups, criminal organizations, ethnic militias, and armed political actors. Last year, in conjunction with our Transnational Threats Program, CSIS, with the Africa program, did a report on extremism in the Sahel, militancy in the arc of instability. I'd encourage you, if you want more background on the complexity of these groups, it's at www.csis.org/Sahel. Ultimately, these complexities and challenges will best be addressed by regional and local actors. This includes military and police forces of the region, but also governments willing to make the difficult political choices and investments to give citizens in marginalized areas a greater stake in peace and the rule of law, and civil society actors working to rebuild social cohesion and dampen the lure of militant ideologies. And critical to all of this, in a region that is so vast, where criminal and extremist groups, arms and people move so easily across long, porous borders, is that the states of the region and their security forces work together over time. So the G5 Joint Sahel Force is an important step in this regard. In its initial aim, it's relatively limited to build coordinated action in 3 trans-border zones to fight terrorism, trafficking in arms, people, and narcotics. But we will hear from today's panel how they see the force and the broader G5 plan evolving over time. It's important to you today that we address some of the concerns that have been raised about the force. Will the states of the region take real ownership of the process? Will this initiative draw resources, attention, and personnel away from other areas of insecurity and risk in the region? Will this military-focused initiative eclipse some of the non-security elements of a comprehensive response, governance, community engagement, development, and so forth? National and political reconciliation, those problems are maybe more long-term in addressing, but they are even more important in combating insecurity in a sustainable way. So let me introduce today's panel. We are going to begin with Foreign Minister Abdoulaye Diop of Mali. He is chair of the ministers of the G5 Sahel, so he will give a broad overview of yesterday's engagements, the development and impetus behind the force. We then have Foreign Minister Alpha Bari of Burkina Faso. Welcome, Minister. We have Foreign Minister Ibrahim Yakubu of Niger. Welcome. And we have Foreign Minister Hussein Brahmin Taha of Chad. And let me just say it's his birthday today, so we wish him a very happy birthday. So, Minister Diop, I turn to you.
Jennifer, thank you so much for this opportunity, and good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure for us to be here, and we would like to thank you for this important showing, an early showing for this event. I want to thank CSIS for also hosting us and giving us this opportunity that we hope can help to broaden the understanding of the challenges and threats that our region is facing, at the same time also to help us to build the responses that we are trying to put in place to address these issues. We are here in the US for two things. First, we attended on October 30th a ministerial meeting of the UN Security Council, which was chaired by the French foreign minister as chair of the UN Security Council. It was mainly, the objective was to discuss the UN Secretary General report on the G5 Sahel joint force. And the second is we decided to come to Washington to also engage in the bilateral talks with the US government, and also have this opportunity also to interact with you, because we think any response that we might have in our region might not be meaningful as much as we don't have the strong understanding and support of the US because of its experience and involvement in so many issues around the globe, specifically on this region. So this is why we are here in Washington. And also before we were in New York, we have really meaningful discussions, and we also welcome the positive recommendation from the UNSG report asking the UN Security Council and the international community broadly to support and provide assistance on a multilateral or bilateral basis to the joint force of the G5 Sahel. So what is the G5? Sahel to start with. It's not just a fancy name to copy the G7, the G20, no. And that's why we don't call ourselves just G5, we call ourselves G5 Sahel. So you should insist on the Sahel part of it. It's Mali, Chad, Burkina, Niger, and Mauritania. These countries share the same geographical space. We are also very close in terms of proximity of socio-economic condition, culture, the climatic also configuration of this region. Most of our country are covered by desert. It means that we have vast lands with which might be also underpopulated. We have several challenges because we are also covered by the desert. So because of all these proximities, we decided to come together and on two pillars, which are mainly, one is security, the second pillar is development. So why we even decided to put in place this configuration? Remember, the crisis in Mali have created a vacuum in the state presence in the northern part of Mali, which are also contributed to expand the insecurity, the instability, and the crime activities in this part of the country. But Mali itself is not only the cause of what is happening in the region. Mali has fallen. At that time, we lost about 60% of our territory, but it was mainly due to the foreign intervention in Libya, which was ill-planned, ill-executed, and the aftermath was not handled, not to say anything diplomatically. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah? So on that front, I will just depart from my diplomatic language to say this was really the strategic mistake, which led, of course, we had our own issues regarding underdevelopment, regarding challenges, regarding a lack of inclusivity in some countries, also climate, because in many of these areas, we are desertic areas, and the people are facing with many challenges regarding water and many resources. So the Libyan crisis have been a complete game changer in our region, and which have created now this situation. We have Boko Haram in the other part of the region. Some of my colleagues may come also to address specifically from Niger or from Chad the challenges they are facing with Boko Haram and the response that were provided. So that's, I think, one of the critical elements which have created this instability in this area. We have also to think about the drug contribution, the drug smuggling. And, South America become now very close to the Sahel because the drug is coming mainly also from South America, transiting in the northern part of Mali or in the Sahel, being shipped to Europe. So we are really in this very complex geostrategic area. I'm not talking also about really the geostrategic importance of the G5 Sahel, because why we think the Sahel today should benefit from the attention of the international community more than any other area, because this is a vast land. The G5 Sahel does not encompass the whole Sahel, because Sahel can go from Senegal to Somalia. So we are just a tiny part of the Sahel. And because of the challenges this region is facing, this region is critical for the stability of the entire world. This, we have to comprehend that one. If I give you just one example, we are the closest neighbor to Europe because we have just the northern African country between us and Europe. And Europe is the biggest ally of the US because of the NATO and the rest. So all the terrorist attacks that are being maybe planned from this region will directly affect Europe and directly affect also the US interests. And not talking also about what happened a few days ago in Niger, where the US lost 4 of the soldiers. I want on behalf of all my colleagues to present our condolences to the US government, US people, as well as the family. But this is here to recall us that we are handling a global problem, which many of your countrymen or women are losing their lives because of the terrorist attacks in our countries, or if this space is not fully controlled by government and by state institutions, so terrorist threat can be organized or attacks can be organized from these places to Europe and even to the US. So it's very important that we understand that while US is very much involved in while the US is also involved in Syria, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and probably in Somalia, we are devoting significant amount of resources to this area. And yeah, I think the fight in Syria and Iraq is getting some result. But what is happening? Most of the terrorists are leaving these places to come to the Sahel, to harbor there and to organize themselves and organize attacks against everybody else. That's why we are saying in our region, every country is doing its best in Niger, in Mali, with a different level of success. But we came to the realization that we are confronting a regional and transnational challenge, which is for drug smuggling, terrorist attack, human trafficking. Unless we provide a regional response, we won't be successful. That's what brought us to put in place this joint force of the G5 Sahel, which is genuinely a decision of our head of state, which have decided in Bamako in February this month to establish this joint force, which is about 5,000 soldiers. The cost is approximately 450 million US dollars that we need to do this. But let's do this. We are not begging for this money. This also has to be clear. We are investing our human resources, we are putting our soldiers, we are putting our own money, but what we are facing is a global threat in which we have a role to play. Either the world decides to help us to address this, and then we can be successful, or the world will look at us to confront alone with this, and the cost for everybody, for us it will be higher, but for the entire world also we'll have to pay a much higher price, and we will have to do something. And even the 450 million that we are asking for this joint force, if you look at some of these foreign intervention in Syria or in Iraq, 1 day of operation could cost that money. So it's not just about to say that this is something that we can't do it. So this is just the G5 Sahel, this joint force that we have established. It's an African response to the African challenges. We got the backing of the African Union, Peace and Security Council, which have given us a mandate. And from that mandate, we went to the UN Security Council. We have done all this in just 8 months. We went to the UN Security Council on June 21st. We got the resolution 2359, authorizing the deployment of the force. And since then, also, the country have been working to establish the headquarters of the joint force, and the battalion are being constituted. Even a first operation happened just a few days ago. But we are not reaching to the full capacity of the force. That's why we think US, as a global military power, should not be on the sideline. They should be with us. And they have pledged 50 million. We consider this is an initial pledge to the force beyond the amount of this 60 million. It's just that even the political backing of the US to the joint force is as important as the amount which is providing. Our ultimate goal is to not to have single contribution from countries, but to have a mechanism, a multilateral support mechanism which is predictable and durable for the force. Because this, we are engaging in a battle which we know will last long. It will take us many years to address it, and then we are building our country's military capability to do it. But not only military response, I said it at the beginning, G5 have 2 pillars because of the time and because of the topic of our discussion today. We are focusing on the G5 joint force, but we have also what we call a priority investment program of the G5, which is a priority area for development for the 5 countries, focusing on cross-border development, fragility, and challenges. It's really require a lot of resources as well. If I have time, I can talk about it or maybe share with you documentation. But in summary, what we want to say mainly is this is what we are doing. For the fight against terrorism, it has to be coordinated. We don't, as my colleague from Niger is saying, we don't need to have an asymmetric attention to the challenges of the world. Some region will respond more positively, more quickly than the others. And that all these are interrelated. And investment, what G5 Force is asking is an investment in our future. It's not an expenditure, it's an investment. If we don't do it, we will pay the high price for everybody. So just we need to understand that Sahel is confronting a global threat. They are playing their part. They want to be assisted. But we are putting the most valuable resources, which is the human life of our soldiers. And what happened to your soldiers? We are living this every day here in Niger, in Burkina, in Mali. People are really exploding on their minds almost every day. So we need to provide a response before, because the last point that I will say, just to not to monopolize the floor, is the terrorist threat that we are facing recently because of some of these foreign intervention is that the nature of the terrorist threat have changed from bin Laden today. If we see they have been organizing attacks in countries or in cities, but today terrorists are behaving like states. They want a territory, they have an authority, they almost have an army. So if we don't help the Sahel, so we are also allowing terrorists to harbor in a place, to control territory, to act as a state, and to bring threat to everybody. So this is just, I want to say as in the introduction, it's very difficult to summarize all these issues, but I just wanted to put this, and I'm absolutely confident that my colleagues here around the table could come up with really specific approach to some of these challenges that we are facing, which are global and for which also we are not sitting and begging, but we are playing our part, but we shouldn't be left alone. And we want the US definitely to be part of it.
Thank you, Minister. Very powerful and compelling case that you make for U.S. and global engagement on this. I'm going to turn to Minister Bari from Burkina Faso first. I'd like to get from all three of the remaining, our remaining panelists, kind of a perspective from your particular country. Now, Burkina Faso, until recent years, and you've suffered some devastating attacks in Ouagadougou and alarming rise in attacks in the northern and Sahel region of Burkina Faso. But you are relatively more recently affected by these violent extremist attacks. And I wonder, because it is a trans-border initiative, and some of your problems have been kind of internal, how do you balance and how do you see the balance between kind of your broader security challenge and what the G5 Sahel joint force will do? So perhaps you just speak to why this is important to Burkina and how you balance it with your broader security environment.
Merci beaucoup. Je voudrais dire toute notre indignation par rapport à ce qui est arrivé hier à New York. L'attentat qui a causé la mort de 8 personnes, c'est le point de vue partagé de chacun de nous. On est très indignés pour cela et on condamne de la manière la plus ferme ces attentats.
Et n'oublie pas qu'il y a une traductrice.
Thank you very much. I want to say, first of all, to the audience here, that we condemn the attack in New York which caused the death of 8 people, and our condolences are with them and their families.
Alors, il y a 18 mois, à Ouagadougou, c'était le 15 janvier 2016, un Américain, Michael James Ridering, a perdu la vie dans un attentat, l'attentat du Cappuccino et de l'hôtel Splendide. Et 18 mois après, nous avons connu près de 80 attaques terroristes après ce premier attentat et qui ont causé la mort de 133 personnes.
On the 15th of January 2016, an American lost his life, and 18 months later, we experienced about 80 attacks in which 150 people lost their lives.
80 attaques, dont 2 à Ouagadougou, et l'attentat dont j'ai parlé de Cappuccino. Il y a eu l'attentat de Istanbul, c'était en août dernier, du café Istanbul.
There 80 attacks. Of those, 2 were in Ouagadougou. I spoke about the Cappuccino attack, and then there was an attack at the café Istanbul.
À côté donc de la mort de l'Américain, on a enregistré aussi de nombreux autres morts et de nombreux ressortissants d'autres pays, canadiens, français, suisses et autres, et bien entendu de nombreux Africains, dont des Burkinabés.
Among the, in addition to the American who was killed in these many other attacks, there were nationals from many other countries, Canada, France, Switzerland, and others, and of course many Burkinabe citizens lost their lives.
C'est pour vous dire que c'est un problème mondial, ce n'est pas une affaire de Burkinabé ni de Sahéliens. C'est un phénomène mondial qui touche tout le monde, qui touche à la fois les Africains, les Sahéliens, mais également vos concitoyens.
So in other words, it's a world problem that touches a good part of us, not only our African colleagues and countries.
Nous disons que ce ne sont pas les alertes jaunes ou rouges ou oranges ou les alertes pour conseiller à ne pas voyager dans telle région qui vont résoudre le problème. Il faut une réelle coopération entre nos pays.
We are not talking only of the alerts like yellow, red, orange alerts, or alerts advising people not to travel at all to our countries.
La conséquence de toutes ces attaques pour le Burkina Faso, dont la plupart se situent au niveau de la bande frontalière avec le Mali. Comme vous le savez, la Libye a été déstabilisée, ça a touché le Mali est déstabilisé dans la partie nord de son territoire, ça touche maintenant le Burkina, qui partage 1300 km avec le Mali. Donc dans cette zone, nous connaissons aujourd'hui des situations avec une vingtaine d'écoles qui sont fermées. Et au moment où je vous parle, 2000 écoliers burkinabés ne peuvent pas aller à l'école du fait qu'ils ont fui avec leurs parents pour se réfugier ailleurs, ou tout simplement les enseignants ont abandonné leur poste à cause de la menace des terroristes.
The consequences for Burkina Faso are great. Most have taken place at the Malian border, which is 1,300 kilometers in length. You know, Libya was destabilized, which had an impact on Mali, which then in turn had an impact on Burkina Faso. 20 schools have been closed, so about 2,000 school children cannot go to school. They and their teachers fled for their own safety.
Les terroristes sont à la recherche de territoires, ils veulent contrôler des territoires, ils le font déjà, mais notre combat, le ministre Abdoulaye Diop l'a dit, c'est de faire en sorte qu'il n'ait aucun territoire dans notre pays. Et s'ils arrivent à avoir le moindre espace dans notre pays, la prochaine cible, ça va être le reste de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, la Côte d'Ivoire, le Ghana, le Bénin, en fait toute l'Afrique de l'Ouest et disons, toute l'Afrique.
Our minister has made a high priority of this, and the terrorists are searching for new territories, and soon there will be other targets in Africa, such as the Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, and actually the whole of our region.
Donc notre défi, c'est de faire en sorte d'éradiquer ce phénomène et le comprimer là où il se trouve en ce moment. Et c'est pourquoi nous sommes dans cette action commune dans le cadre du G5 du Sahel. Et le ministre Diop vous a indiqué tous les défis qu'il y a autour de cette action avec la force conjointe. Je ne vais pas revenir dessus, mais je voulais juste ajouter qu'il vous a indiqué les chiffres. Pour le moment, nous sommes loin du compte. Et nous voulons dire qu'il faut que la coopération soit réelle et qu'on ait les ressources nécessaires pour faire face à ce défi. Et nous saluons les 60 millions de dollars qui ont été annoncés par les États-Unis il y a 2 jours. C'est un effort louable, mais nous disons qu'on a besoin encore de ressources additionnelles pour compléter le budget de la force conjointe. Et pour cela, nous fondons beaucoup d'espoir sur la réunion de Bruxelles le 14 décembre où on attend à ce que nos partenaires puissent nous aider à boucler le budget. Et nous attendons des États-Unis donc une aide additionnelle en plus de ce qui est déjà fait de façon bilatérale et ce qui est annoncé et ce qui peut encore être fait au niveau multilatéral pour compléter ce budget. Mais nous attendons aussi de la part des États-Unis un effet d'entraînement, un lobbying vis-à-vis d'autres partenaires multilatéraux, partenaires bilatéraux, certains pays. Donc nous voulons que les États-Unis jouent aussi un rôle de leadership pour amener de nombreux partenaires à soutenir notre action.
The Minister Diop described in detail the joint force, the G5 joint force, so I'm not going to spend any further time on that. But basically, our population has an enormous need for greater resources. We are very pleased by the $60 million announced that were pledged by the United States 2 days ago. This is a laudatory effort, but in fact, we're going to need far greater resources. And thus, we have a lot of faith and looking forward to the meeting in Brussels on December 14th. So we're hoping for additional aid from multilateral partners and additional aid from the United States as well. We've been lobbying for support both multilaterally and bilaterally with certain countries in particular.
Le Burkina Faso a lancé un programme d'urgence d'investissement dans les zones du nord du pays. C'est un programme ambitieux de 715 millions de dollars, dont 135 millions de dollars à investir pour cette année 2017. Mais le défi est de faire en sorte que cet investissement puisse se faire au profit des populations, parce que vous le savez, sans sécurité, il n'y a pas de développement. Mais en même temps, le défi est de faire en sorte que les populations de ces zones ne se sentent pas abandonnées par l'État. En tout cas, qu'elles n'aient pas ces sentiments, comme ces écoliers qui ne vont pas à l'école. Je vous remercie.
Burkina Faso launched an urgent program of approximately $715,000, of which a good part of it was spent in 2017. But we are in need of greater investment because, as you know, without security, no development is possible. I thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Let's turn to Minister Yakubu of Niger. One of the challenges of Niger is that it is dealing both with Boko Haram in the country's southwest through the multinational joint task force, as well as the border with Libya, as well as the border with Chad and with Mali. So again, you're drawn in many different directions, and I'd like to know kind of how the G5 fits with that. The other question is perhaps because Niger has been such a transit route for drugs and human trafficking, that is part of the mandate of this G5 as well, but a difficult, complicated one because it overlaps with terrorist groups and intersects in certain ways, but is also one of the only sources of income for many communities up in the north. So I'm just wondering how you balance both the challenge of Boko Haram with the mandate of the G5 and within the G5 mandate, how the dual mission can be accomplished.
Okay, I'm so sorry, my English is bad. Je vais parler en français. Merci, madame. Je sais que ce n'est pas très pratique aussi, le fait que la traduction ne soit pas simultanée. Je voudrais dire deux choses qui me sont importantes, en tout cas au nom du Niger. La première, c'est dire toutes nos condoléances aux familles des 4 soldats américains tombés le 4 octobre dans le village de Tongo Tongo. Ils sont morts aux côtés de nos compatriotes Et je voudrais dire que les États-Unis peuvent être fiers de leurs hommes qui se sont battus comme des lions et qui sont morts les armes à la main, comme nous sommes fiers de nos armées qui se battent depuis aujourd'hui 3 ans sur plusieurs fronts pour préserver la sécurité de notre pays et du Sahel.
I'm sorry that there is no simultaneous translation, but thank you very much. Two important things I would like to mention in the name of Niger. But first, I'd like to start with expressing all of our condolences for the 4 Americans who lost their lives on the 4th of October, and who, of course, were fighting alongside our own compatriots. They fought like we express our condolences and feelings for their families. They fought like lions with their weapons in hand, and this is very dear to the hearts of our citizens in Niger.
La deuxième, c'est dire notre solidarité, comme l'a évoqué mon frère Barry, par rapport à l'attentat terroriste d'hier à New York, dire notre solidarité et nos condoléances aux familles qui sont affectées.
And also, the second thing is I would like very much to express our solidarity, as my colleague, Foreign Minister, mentioned, to the Americans, or to those who lost their lives in New York yesterday. All of our condolences.
Le Niger affronte plusieurs défis, Madame Jennifer l'a évoqué tout à l'heure, et avec le Cameroun, le Tchad, le Nigeria, nous avons affronté et nous avons eu un certain succès face à Boko Haram, et nous avons aujourd'hui réduit les capacités offensives de Boko Haram, même si elle continue à porter des attaques qui sont meurtrières. Donc nous, notre premier défi sécuritaire et que nous avons affronté avec succès, c'est cette lutte contre la secte Boko Haram, qui est née au Nigeria, mais qui s'est étendue sur la plupart de nos 4 États que j'ai évoqués tout à l'heure.
The Niger is facing several challenges, as Madame Jennifer mentioned, and particularly we have this issue along with Cameroon, Chad, and Nigeria of confronting the problem of Boko Haram. We've had certain successes in reducing their capacities, but this struggle against the Boko Haram sect is, while it started in Nigeria, it has spread to many other countries in the region, and this is a very high priority for us.
Sur la situation au Sahel, je voudrais dire simplement que toute cette situation, elle est née à partir d'une intervention calamiteuse qui a eu lieu en Libye et qui a détruit un régime sans plan de suite, sans aucune vision stratégique. La situation au Mali, les attaques contre le Niger et le Burkina, y compris tous les morts, les Nigériens, les Burkinabés, les éléments de Barkhane, les Maliens et les Américains qui sont morts, nous sommes dans cette situation parce qu'une très mauvaise opération a été menée en Libye sans consultation des pays africains et sans accord des pays voisins.
On the Sahel situation, we are suffering the ill effects of the calamitous intervention in Libya, following which there was really no strategic vision or strategy, and so many Malians have died in the process.
Je voudrais dire aussi une chose qui me paraît importante pour comprendre la situation au Sahel. Nous n'avons pas affaire à un extrémisme religieux. Nous avons affaire à des narco-terroristes. Ceux qui nous attaquent au Sahel, ceux qui sont en train de se constituer en menace contre le monde entier, ce sont des trafiquants de drogue alliés aux terroristes. C'est le même groupe, les mêmes intérêts. Nous n'affrontons pas un extrémisme religieux au Sahel, nous affrontons des trafiquants de drogue qui ont besoin d'un espace pour faire prospérer leur business.
So I would like to say something that seems quite important to me in the Sahel. What we are dealing with is not religious extremists. We're dealing with narco-terrorists. these are drug traffickers who need more space and in order to operate, and that's really what's happening at the moment.
Boko Haram étaient des extrémistes religieux qui ont dérapé, mais au Sahel, nous affrontons des narcoterroristes.
Boko Haram was a religious extremist problem, but what is going on right now in the Sahel is really much more about drug trafficking.
Je pense que le temps est court, c'est ça? C'est un peu difficile
Okay.
qu'on formule, c'est pas très pratique, mais avant de finir, je voudrais dire que le tribut que nous payons est très lourd. Nous avons perdu beaucoup d'hommes, beaucoup de femmes, et j'ai une pensée pour les 39 femmes et filles qui ont été enlevées à Ingelewa, à Difa, depuis aujourd'hui 2017 par la secte Boko Haram.
We have lost many, many women and men, compatriots, and in 2016, I believe, there were 39 women kidnapped by the Boko Haram sect.
Thank you, Minister. Let us turn to Foreign Minister Taha of Chad. Again, I think some of the same questions, Chad's position within the G5 and balancing with other security threats. Chad is engaged in multiple of these multilateral forces. The Multinational Joint Task Force has forces in MINUSMA. It has security problems on other borders. So perhaps you can share with us briefly the Chadian perspective and why the G5 is such an important development.
Merci, Madame. Je voudrais avant tout aussi présenter les condoléances de mon pays pour l'attentat qui est survenu hier à New York et qui a coûté la vie à 8 personnes. Je voudrais vraiment adresser toutes nos condoléances parce que ceux qui ont tué hier à New York, ce sont les mêmes qui continuent de tuer dans nos pays. Je crois qu'il ne faut pas faire trop de différences parce que c'est la même idéologie, c'est la même pensée qui circule du nord au sud, de l'est à l'ouest, qui circule en ce moment. Et donc, qui fait des morts, qui a une ambition de tuer le maximum de gens possibles. Et ce qui s'est passé hier, ce sont les mêmes qui nous tuent dans notre région et qui tuent nos jeunes et qui enlèvent les femmes, comme l'a dit mon collègue du Niger.
Attendez pour la traduction.
Thank you very much, Madame. First, I would like to present all of my sincere condolences regarding the attacks yesterday in New York City, which cost the lives of 8 people. All of our condolences to those who have been killed in New York, because in fact, it's the same ideology and the same kind of thinking that kills those in our country and countries as well. This ideology circulates from in all directions, north, south, south, north, east, west, and it kills people in our region just as it kills the others in the United States.
Comme vous le savez sans doute, le Tchad se trouve aux confins de plusieurs crises en même temps. Nous sommes bordés par le nord, la Libye, d'où viennent tous les problèmes. C'est l'épicentre de tout ce qui se passe dans notre région du Mali jusqu'à l'est au Tchad. Et on est bordé à l'ouest par le Soudan, surtout par le Darfour, qui est une région encore instable où des événements graves se sont passés et continuent de se passer, même si ça a une moindre mesure, c'est une zone assez trouble. Nous avons le sud du Tchad qui est bordé par la RCA, la République centrafricaine, qui, en ce moment où on parle, des graves événements s'y déroulent. C'est un État partagé entre des groupuscules armés qui sont du nord au sud de la Centrafrique et qui se partagent le pays.
Chad confronts several crises, as you have heard mentioned. Our northern border is with Libya, which is really the epicenter of all of the troubles that have spread in this area, in this region. On our western border, we have Sudan, which is extremely troubled and unstable, especially by the events in Darfur. Our southern border is with the Central African Republic, where grave events are taking place at the moment.
Et à l'ouest, je n'ai pas fini les pays que j'ai cités. L'ouest, c'est le Nigeria, avec Boko Haram, qui menace tous les pays du bassin du lac Tchad.
And on the west, just to complete this, we have Nigeria on our western border with Boko Haram and all of the kidnappings and events that they cause.
Dès le début de l'occupation du Mali, et surtout quand les narcotrafiquants ont essayé d'avancer plus au sud pour aller vers Bamako, mon pays, qui est très éloigné, il faut le dire, du Mali, avait décidé d'envoyer rapidement des forces pour contrer l'attaque des djihadistes qui se dirigeaient vers Bamako. C'est ainsi que des milliers d'hommes ont été transportés à 3000 kilomètres de notre frontière pour aller se positionner au nord du Mali pour couper la retraite à ceux qui sont allés attaquer et qui voulaient attaquer Bamako. Donc le premier geste, c'était en janvier 2013 que nos forces sont portées pour contrer l'attaque des terroristes dans cette région et qui continuent à payer un lourd tribut parce que la semaine dernière déjà on a perdu trois hommes et 6 blessés parmi les Tchadiens qui sont dans l'aménagement au Nord Mali.
From the beginning of the occupation in Mali and with CAD and narco-trafficking of the forces who are trying to go from northern Mali towards Bamako, my country decided rapidly to send support. There are 3 miles to the area that is 3,000 kilometers from our border. So we sent the great number of troops to the north of Mali. In January of 2013, our forces went to confront this formidable challenge, and we have paid a high tribute. 6 people have died, and 3 people have been wounded, or I'm sorry, maybe the reverse.
Oui, et dans un autre front, dans le bassin du lac Tchad, nous avons constitué avec les forces, avec les pays du bassin du lac Tchad, qui sont le Cameroun, le Niger, le Nigeria et le Tchad, nous avons constitué une force multinationale mixte qui nous permet de faire face au phénomène du Boko Haram, au groupe Boko Haram, qui, lui, a pu, en 2015, envoyer des éléments, des kamikazes à l'intérieur du Tchad qui ont causé la mort de plusieurs dizaines de personnes en 2015. Depuis lors, on a fait quelques efforts pour les stopper à l'extérieur, mais nos forces sont dans les FMM, mais en même temps, en aide directe bilatérale avec notre voisin du Niger, pour combattre les forces de Boko Haram dans la région. Donc, c'est pour vous dire, c'est pas pour nous présenter comme acteur principal, mais pour vous dire qu'avec nos pays voisins, on est en train de travailler pour combattre ces phénomènes de terrorisme. Mais ça ne se fait pas sans beaucoup de pertes d'abord humaines, mais au détriment aussi de nos populations qui ont besoin de développement, qui ont besoin d'écoles, qui ont besoin de centres de santé. Mais nous sommes obligés de laisser en ce moment ces questions-là pour permettre à nos pays d'abord d'exister et faire face à ces phénomènes qui se développent dans notre région. Et donc, on est obligé d'aller se porter devant l'ennemi pour l'empêcher de déstabiliser nos pays.
Oui. Excuse me. So in the area, the basin that involves that includes Cameroon and Nigeria and Chad, we've set up a multinational force to confront international terrorism, and particularly the problem of Boko Haram, which sent kamikazes in 2015 to Chad with disastrous results. I would also mention the FMN and the bilateral aid that we give to our Nigerian neighbor. I'm not trying to say that we are a principal actor, but we are joining with our fellow and neighboring countries to confront this serious, serious issue. As you know, we have all kinds of development needs, schools, health centers, etc. But unfortunately, we have to neglect these needs in order to confront the serious security challenges, which are attempting to destabilize our country and our region.
Thank you very much. I have plenty of questions, but I want to engage the audience to ask questions as well. Thank you to all of you. A couple of the common themes. Most of you mentioned Libya as the source of much of this. I have to say there were vulnerabilities in the region that Libyan crisis helped precipitate, that those vulnerabilities remain. The other, though, very important is that the militaries and states of the region have spent resources and even more important, have lost lives in fighting these multiple threats. So it's not simply kind of looking for a handout or for others to do their work for them. They have suffered real losses. I'm going to start with one question, but then we're going to take a few. Mine is focused perhaps less diplomatically on Mali. Mali was the most vulnerable to the fallout from Libya. They are still grappling with finding a political solution and a governance solution that works to bind the North and the South and to pacify the North. And that is going to remain a challenge. And I wonder for other states of the region, kind of how they see that process, what pressures they're bringing to bear on the Malian government, and perhaps the Malian government, how it's trying to address that and how successful that has been. But let me I'm going to take 3 or 4 questions. If you have a specific person, please direct it to them. Please introduce yourself. Let's go to the lady on the side there. Yeah.
Hi, thank you all so much for being here. My name is Caitlin Lavender. I'm a national security analyst with the Cipher Brief. This question is directed at all the panelists, but specifically Minister Diop. You mentioned that the G5 Sahel has already engaged in its first operation. I'm wondering if you can provide any more information on that. Where was it? What was the target, et cetera? Thank you.
Thanks, Caitlin. Yes, the lady here. We'll do this side, and then we'll come over to this side.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. I'm Simone Joseph with the State Department. All of you have stated that Libya is one of the greatest challenges. How has your engagement been with the Maghreb in general, including all of the Maghreb countries, in helping address the threat?
Great, thank you. Mel, and then the gentleman there.
Mel Foote, Constituency for Africa. Good to see my good friend, the ambassador, doing a great job. My question has to do with the fact that you're here to lobby the Trump administration to support the challenges in the Sahel. What does that support look like? Are we talking about military, which I'm sure you would get a good response to, or are we also talking about education, training, healthcare, and reducing poverty in the region?
Okay, and then just behind. Oh my gosh, there's way in the way back.
Galen England, One Campaign. Dovetailing very similarly with the previous question, absolutely development cannot occur without security. However, to what extent are you attempting to realize the development portions of the PIP plan? And have you been able to leverage both domestic or international assistance at that end? And what are the main challenges you're facing in that vis-a-vis the military side of the equation?
Okay, because that's quite related, we'll take one more from this side. The gentleman here on the aisle. We'll want to keep responses quite brief, and we don't need to all answer every question.
Thank you. My name is Iftikhar Mustafa from the Global Agriculture and Food Security Program, housed at the World Bank. Excellencies and Minister, my question is, you have talked about national security. A part of the national security is food security, job security, and so on. The population in your countries is very young. So how are you trying to make sure that the youth in your countries have the right jobs, have employment security, and so on? Thank you.
Okay. Let's turn to you, the first operation, but perhaps you can delegate on the other questions, if that makes sense.
Okay. For the sake of time, I will see if I can cover much of the questions. If I'm not capable of responding some questions, I will just pass on the ball to my colleagues. I think the first question regarding Libya. Of course, maybe we took a shortcut. We are not saying that Libya is the one single source of all our problems. We know we have difficulties in the region. We had climate change issues. We have shortcomings in terms of the governance, inclusivity, a number of issues that our country are facing. But Libya was a complete game changer. Probably even Mali or the region could spend many more years before we reach such level of degradation. But Libya have completely changed the game and have really accelerated all the problems that we have. Now, that's what we are. So we are not just avoiding our own responsibility, but definitely Libya is really the biggest factor which have completely changed the game in Mali, for instance. We knew that the state was collapsing, that we have governance shortcomings, and the army was weakened. So we had consecutive rebellions. But the number of arms and people who flew in from Libya have completely changed the game for us. It's the same also for the other countries. So just to respond to that one, but it still remains our biggest responsibility as we are responding to the challenge of the region. If we as an international community, we don't think about the type of intervention that we do in region, in countries, what will be the impact, how we can coordinate that with the countries and the region, because ultimately, it's on every country, every people in those countries, and every region to provide the response. So if the external actors come in and try to impose a solution, like in Libya, it didn't work, and they left. But we, Mali, Niger, or Chad, is our region. We cannot run away. We are paying the price. That's what we are saying. So if we are doing something, it's better to consult with the region to see if it's the best appropriate way. Is it the military solution? Do we have over resources politically in those regions to take on those ones? You touched on the engagement of the country. Yes, Mali, I responded also, you say, why Mali? Because we ask ourselves those same questions. Why Mali has fallen much quickly than the other countries? Because we had also a number of challenges internally. Institutional challenges, governance shortcomings, our military preparation to respond, to deal with those challenges. So all this has helped probably to accelerate it. But also one thing that we didn't talk about, which is in the mind of every people when we try to speak, G5 Sahel is not meant to solve the Malian political crisis. Once again, G5 will be only successful if we, Malians, continue to work together, to implement the peace agreement, to work with the former rebels, to reconstruct our army, to make sure we have national reconciliation, that we, Malians, can work together to deal also with terrorists and narco-traffickers. So G5 also is based on that assumption that we are doing our work. But I know in UN, in many quarters, people are quite suspicious to say, okay, this is a proxy used by Malians to address the rebellion issues, because Mali is part of the G5. It means that we are working toward reconstructing the Malian army, which will be including former rebels, to help us also to deal with the terrorists. Unless we as a country, we are organized to play our part, we will not be a good partner even to the G5 countries. So G5 is not to solve the Malian political crisis. But of course, it can create a much better environment even for MINUSMA, for a UN mission, which is not effective in addressing the terrorist threat. But the G5 can create a more conducive environment for MINUSMA to do its job. The first operation, which happened just on the 30th of October, was at the border between Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. So let's say it's not a full capacity operation that is launched. It's just probably the beginning, but we still need the means to make sure that really we have the full capability to conduct operation, and not only even to wait for terrorists to come to attack us. As we have also to bring the fight and the terror to them so we can collectively respond. So we are yet to get the maximum capacity of our G5 operations, which we have through, comment on dit fuseau? On a 3 fuseaux.
Pillars or?
Yeah. We have 3 geographical areas. We have 1 between Mauritania and Mali. We have 2 battalions, and we have 3 battalions at the border between Mali, Burkina, and Niger, and we have 2 battalions between Niger and Chad. Yes, that's the way we are organized, but maybe we don't have time to develop too much in details, but we are just beginning. So we need resources. Somebody asked the same question. We need aerial capacity to be able to move our troops. We need logistical support. We need support in terms of the communication, food support and fuel support to our teams, communications. So we have equipments. So we have needs in a number of areas where we need really to provide. That's why we are asking for this international support to allow us, because Mauritania is not here today, but the Mauritanian minister have been explaining, we are being engaged in the fight. If we engage in it, we have to make sure we have all the means and the resources to do the fight and to sustain it. Because if we engage in a fight, you don't have all the capability and the resources to do it. If you start to fail, it means that you will be calling all the terrorists to rally and come to this place. So we might be creating a much bigger problem than the one we are trying to resolve. So that is very important that we get the resources that we need. The Maghreb, we had the same questions yesterday as we are discussing with our colleagues from the US administration. Maghreb is the immediate neighbor. It's not even the Maghreb, because Maghreb is the northern border of the G5 country, Mali, Burkina, Niger, Chad. So we are engaging Morocco, Algeria, Libya, Egypt and Tunisia. Even Egypt and Tunisia have requested to be part of the G5 Sahel, because they have a clear understanding that, these threats that we are facing are borderless. Unless we cooperate, we will not be able to provide any response. We have also to think about our southern borders, which are Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, and the rest, because also we share with the other ECOWAS countries. So we need to work with all our neighbors to make sure that our G5 response is well coordinated with the regional response. That's why we got the mandate from the African Union, Peace and Security Council, to ensure that the G5 is full aligned with the African peace and security architecture, which is confirmed as per a resolution. So we are still working with our neighbors to make sure that G5 is not established against anybody, but it's not also an instrument in the hands of any external power to the G5. It's our instrument. If it has created a more positive and enthusiastic response from the other countries, fine. But it's nobody else's initiative than the G5 themselves. So we own this, but we are open to work with all the partners who are already operating in the region, like the French and the UN mission and the others as well. So what are our expectations from the US? Probably I have touched on that one. First, we said it, we need all the technical and logistical and equipment support that we can have to make sure that our operation is fully backed and fully supported. And the U.S., more than any other country, has really all the capabilities to help us and to get those. In terms of also sharing intelligence, because what we need also is to make sure that we have the appropriate intelligence shared across the board with all our partners to make sure that we can deal with this. So we need military support to make sure that we can conduct this operation, but we also need support in terms of development. One of the colleagues touched on the same issue. What are we doing for our young people? Because who are terrorists? They are mainly recruiting from our young people. But our understanding is, unless you have minimal security, you will not even be able to deal with development issues. In northern part of Mali, we have billions of development assistance today available. We have started constructing roads and schools. But as soon as we start, we have a road between Timbuktu and Gumakura. It has just a few days ago, they burned 10 trucks from the Satom company who are building the road there. So it means that if you don't have the security, even providing development is a mirage. It's very far away. But our long-term response, which is in the G5 priority investment plan over 5 years or even beyond, is to ensure that we can invest for development in our country. We have to create jobs for our young. We need to provide more education. You talked about food security. Agriculture is the biggest asset for most of our country, where it occupies probably 80% of our population. So if we want to create an economic growth, we can benefit the maximum. Of course, food security and agriculture is where we have to invest. Even the migration crisis that we have today, if we can create more jobs for those people. Because if you look at the northern part of Mali, where I know better, the economy is a criminal economy. Our young people, who is coming to give them job opportunity? Is the terrorists, the drug smugglers, or the human traffickers? So unless we can change that paradigm where people have option, either I engage in the business or I work with the terrorists. So that, I think, is our responsibility to make sure. Also, it's also about education. We are not talking about it enough. We will not fight terrorists or win this battle only using military means. It means that we need also to engage in the ideological battle with these people. We need to educate our people. You need to have scholars involved. But also we need to make sure that our people support state efforts. Because you cannot fight terrorists if you don't have your entire population to work with you. Why Chad won Boko Haram? Because it's become the business of the people. When they see people who are suspicious, they will tell the government. You will have the same penalty if you support a terrorist organization. So whilst we are fighting terrorism, we want it to be to get a popular support from our people to understand that police, gendarme, and the rest are also fighting for them as well. I think I have touched on most of the questions. If there are some few questions remaining, I can still respond to it.
We can take another round.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. The gentleman here.
Vous me dites.
So start,
Il faut me
start
dire
up,
si vous
start
voulez
up from here.
compléter. OK. D'accord.
Mohammed Shinnawi, Voice of America. How effective would be the G5 Sahel force of 5,000 soldiers in controlling such vast area and long borders in the Sahel?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a good.
Thank you very much. E.J. Hochner with the International Crisis Group. I would think that one of the major concerns that donors would have with the Sahelian countries' corruption, and I'm a little surprised that none of you have mentioned what your governments will be doing to combat that.
Thanks, E.J. And the lady right behind you.
Hi, I just wanted to ask if you could expand upon how the G5 Sahel is working with MINUSMA in Mali.
MINUSMA, okay. The lady in the far corner, and then there was a question in the way back, which we'll do that just.
Hi, this question is for Foreign Minister Diop. Elise Labott with CNN. I was just in Africa with Ambassador Haley and General Waldhauser, and they said that this is exactly, the G5 is exactly the kind of force that the U.S. wants to work with, and would be giving, as you know, they already gave $60 million in bilateral funding, but before they could give the kind of large-scale funding, including UN-assessed funding, they wanted to see more of a strategy for the whole region for the region to synchronize the efforts into a coherent strategy instead of, isolated incidents across the country. Could you discuss the strategy that in those terms and whether that's what you'll be discussing here in Washington today? Thank you.
And let's take a question. This is in the way back in the foyer, just to be inclusive.
Yeah, no problem.
This is for Minister Bari. I just wanted to know, you talked about development activities being undertaken for the north of Burkina Faso. I wanted to know what kind of activities they are, and also, wouldn't it be a priority to focus on those children who are out of school at this point so that in the long term, we don't have them working with the terrorists? Thank you.
Okay. So let's come back, and we may be able to fit yet another round. So we start with a very specific.
Okay. The first question was to understand. We have 5,000 troops to cover this vast territory, as vast as probably the entire Western Europe we're talking about. So it's a very wide territory. But what we are trying to do, this is an initial response. But for us to understand the role of the G5, we need to understand that every national army and government is dealing internally with the same challenges within our countries. And that the G5 as a regional response and a collective response is coming to complement the national army institution efforts, focusing on cross-border challenges, movement, and issues. So we have to understand that it's still limited, because at some point, even our head of state were looking at maybe going to 10,000 soldiers. Even that one probably might not be sufficient, but we need to start somewhere. Let us start with this, and probably everything might land again on the issue of effectiveness of what we are doing and the strategy we are doing. Not only having big numbers, you might have maybe 10,000 troops, but what we are dealing with is really to have small teams, specialized, special forces, well-trained, well-equipped, with appropriate equipment and intelligence, being able to be deployed and to operate in every area of this space. For me, that is the most important, the quality of the troop that we have, more than having large numbers. Yes, the space is vast, but for instance, if we have more aerial capacity to cover these lands, we can be more effective, because these are very mobile, using 4x4 trucks from one point and another. So, but if we have an aerial superiority, we can have better coverage. If you have better intelligence, you can anticipate on what they're doing. So for me, it's most about looking at that strategy. And if I take on from that point to respond to the question from our friend from CNN, I think we are discussing with the U.S. government. I think so far we have also provided as much information as we can about the strategy, because there is a concept of operation which have been developed, not behind closed doors. From the February summit in Bamako, we start having US experts, MINUSMA experts, French experts, German experts. So the concept of operation have been developed in a transparent way with all these who have also contributed in it. So there is need to have probably much more detailed conversation with the US, between our military, US military and expert to just provide much more detailed response in terms of understanding the regional strategy, but also the strategy within all countries. But I have to tell you, there is a strategy. And the concept of operation also provides really all the detailed information, but we are still ready to when the UN Security Council visited also the headquarters of the force in Sevare, they came out really impressed by the presentation that have been done by the commander of the force about the overall regional strategies and how we intend to address this. Maybe in 2-3 minutes, I might not be in the position to give you all this detail, but I have to assure that there is a strategy. There are men that have been also calculated. We know what we need to do this job. So we just need the maximum support to be able to do that. Corruption. There is also a transnational, because G5 Joint Force mandate has threefold. First is fight terrorism. The second is to tackle the human trafficking and the transnational crime, including drug, which all have links also to corruption, because drug smugglers, for instance, try really to destabilize the country, also to have connection with civil servants and the rest. But corruption still also remains a responsibility of every government to deal with it. And in all our country, there are efforts being done to promote more transparency, but also to promote more sanction when there is corruption. We are fully committed. But we also need more collaboration with the others, because in the corruption you need to do two to do it. Because we have corruption in our countries, but we know also people from outside are also involved in the corruption in our country, or many of our people are placing money in the foreign banks. So it's really need much broader collaboration but it's a key priority for all our countries, because we know corruption also has an impact on the number of jobs we can create in our economy, or to divert the resources. MINUSMA. If you look at, I just refer you to the report of the UN Secretary General himself. In the report concluded that the G5 Sahel is complementary to the MINUSMA. As we are developing the concept of the G5 Sahel, we have done it with the UN political and military experts, and the Secretary General in his report once again recognized the value of the G5 Joint Force and said that if G5 Sahel Joint Force is supported, it will create more space for MINUSMA. The challenge is MINUSMA is a peacekeeping operation. But from the UN officials themselves, we are not anymore technically in a peacekeeping environment. So there is no peace to be kept. And then there is a problem. And then MINUSMA is evolving in an asymmetric war environment. While they are mandated to keep peace, it means that there is a problem there. So they are not, and from the UN own reports, they are saying that they're using 70% of the troops to protect themselves. So how many are left then to do the job? So this is where G5 came in to say, we are fighting terrorism. What the UN, they are saying their mandate is not to fight terrorism. They can at least defend themselves. We know many Malian soldiers are dying today to protect the UN forces against the terrorists. So our challenge is to make sure that the G5 can tackle the terrorist threat, while the MINUSMA can focus on the reconstruction, supporting the deployment of the army and the state institution of Mali and rebuilding the state. So this is where we see the complementarity. Of course, MINUSMA also can provide support, or UN can provide support to joint force, through equipment, through logistical support, through all sorts of expertise that we need. But frankly, I don't see any contradiction, because we are not dealing with the same problem. But if we are helped to deal with the G5 terrorist threat, I think MINUSMA will have ample space to move freely and to execute correctly its mandate. Barry has a question on development.
Oui, je voudrais dans un premier temps dire que le Burkina Faso compte près de 1800 soldats au Mali, mais le constat c'est que cela ne suffit pas à protéger notre pays, ça ne suffit pas à protéger nos frontières. Et c'est ça qui justifie aussi la naissance du G5 du Sahel, qui apparaît comme un bon complément à la MINUSMA, puisque l'épicentre de la crise est bien entendu à l'intérieur du Mali, mais comme c'est une crise que nous convenons tous qu'elle déborde au-delà des frontières du Mali, et il faut une stratégie régionale, et c'est en cela que la force conjointe du G5 du Sahel apparaît comme un bon complément à la MINUSMA.
The Burkina Faso has maybe 800 soldiers in Mali.
1800.
1800.
Deux bataillons.
1,800 soldiers in Mali, but which is insufficient to protect our countries. We have great hope for the G5 Sahel. We do understand that the epicenter of the crisis is in the center of Mali, but we need a regional strategy in order to proceed forward.
Donc c'est la raison pour laquelle nous soutenons fortement, comme le ministre Diop l'a dit, le rapport du secrétaire général des Nations Unies qui trouve une articulation entre le G5 du Sahel et la MINUSMA.
That's why the report of the Secretary General of the United Nations is so important with regard to the agreement between MINUSMA and the G5 Sahel.
Sur la question qui m'a été posée, quels genres d'activités de développement sont concernés par le programme d'urgence au niveau de notre pays? Il s'agit des services sociaux de base, éducation, santé, électricité, infrastructure, et puis eau, hydraulique, et également des activités d'agriculture et d'élevage pour donner des revenus aux populations.
On the question I was asked about what types of urgent activities are we undertaking in terms of development, we have there's education, electricity, infrastructure, water and hydraulic issues, and activities of raising of animals.
Non, il y a un autre volet de la question. Comme nous l'avons dit, ce programme vise à faire en sorte que ces populations n'aient pas le sentiment d'être abandonnées par l'État et qu'elles aient des activités, des emplois, des revenus, de sorte qu'elles ne soient pas des proies faciles pour ceux qui veulent les recruter dans les groupes terroristes.
As we said, the population the program lives to ensure that the population not feel abandoned by the state, that there be jobs for people, and that they not feel prey to recruitment from the terrorist organizations.
30 secondes juste pour dire que pour les enfants dont vous avez parlé, il faut arriver à sécuriser les villages. Parce que face aux enseignants qui fuient, dans la psychose qu'ils vivent, il faut pouvoir sécuriser. C'est quand on aura une réponse sécuritaire satisfaisante qu'on peut s'assurer que les enfants vont rester sur place, les enseignants vont rester sur place et les cours vont reprendre normalement dans ces villages. Merci.
Just to say that concerning the children, we need to secure our villages and make them safe, and that the psychosis of the teachers fleeing the areas has to be reversed. So we would need resources to keep the teachers in place and schools open for children.
Thank you. Minister Yakubu and Taha, would you like to say a minute or 30 seconds of final wrap-up? It's not obligatory, but we are just about at time.
Oui, d'accord, merci. C'est le côté pratique qui n'est pas approprié pour la discussion. Moi, je voudrais dire que l'engagement des pays du G5 Sahel à combattre le terrorisme doit être fortement soutenu par les États-Unis d'Amérique.
Just like to say, thank you very much. I'd like to say on the practical side is not really so applicable for this discussion, but we would like to say that the commitment of the activities of the G5 Sahel to combat terrorism requires the support of the international community.
L'objectif de restaurer la paix et la sécurité au Sahel ne sera pas réalisable tant que nous ne mettons pas en place une force du type du G5 Sahel. Et cette force-là, elle ne peut pas être une force opérationnelle qui va avoir du succès sans l'engagement du pays le plus puissant, c'est les États-Unis. Donc, il y a aujourd'hui un rôle déterminant que les États-Unis doivent jouer, c'est d'apporter leur soutien à une force qui est la réponse des dirigeants des pays concernés par la sécurité. Il y a un tournant où les États-Unis soutiennent cette force et nous sommes sûrs que nous allons vaincre les terroristes et les trafiquants de drogue, ou ils ne soutiennent pas assez et je vous promets que les résultats ne seront pas à la hauteur. Donc nous sommes convaincus que la volonté des États doit être soutenue aujourd'hui par les États-Unis d'Amérique parce qu'ils ont la capacité, ils ont les moyens et ils ont la légitimité démocratique pour porter ce combat contre le terrorisme.
This objective of peace and security will not be reachable until we put in place this fully scaled up G5 joint force. If we don't have the support or greater support from the United States, we will not be able to succeed. So the United States has a role to play. The response of our governments is there, and we are sure that we can and we will be successful. We're convinced that the will of our states is there, but we require the support of the United States, which has all the necessary resources, in order for us to ensure success in this mission.
Je voudrais terminer par dire que nous, le combat que nous menons pour vaincre le terrorisme au Sahel est un combat pour préserver nos États.
I'd like to conclude by saying that the combat that we are engaged in is a combat to preserve our governments, our states.
Toutes les fois qu'on a laissé les terroristes prospérer sur un territoire, ils ont détruit les États. C'est le cas de l'Afghanistan, c'est le cas de la Somalie et c'est aujourd'hui le cas de la Libye.
Le cas de...
Toutes les fois qu'on a laissé les terroristes vivre sur un territoire, ils ont détruit les États. C'est ce qui est arrivé en Afghanistan, c'est ce qui est arrivé en Somalie et c'est ce qui est arrivé en Libye. Et nous ne voudrions pas que cela arrive pour le Mali, pour le Niger, le Burkina ou le Tchad.
Every time we have allowed terrorists to prosper, the states involved have been destroyed, which was the case in Afghanistan, in Somalia, in Libya, and we do not want this to be the case for our states Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Mauritania, or Chad. Thank you.
Et Ministre Taha.
Juste un petit mot pour dire qu'en venant ici, nous n'avons pas attendu pour combattre le terrorisme qui s'est déjà manifesté dans nos régions. Nous l'avons combattu avec nos propres moyens, mais comme on le constate, l'ennemi a beaucoup de moyens, il est partout, il est dans toutes les régions du monde. Il a les moyens de nous combattre plus. C'est pour cela que nous avons décidé de venir demander l'appui des États-Unis, qui est la plus grande nation du monde. Les nouvelles heureuses qui nous sont venues de la Syrie, de l'Irak, sur la défaite de Daesh en ce moment, peuvent être ternies par les informations qui nous parviennent en ce moment, selon lesquelles Daesh est en train de se redéployer peut-être dans le nord de l'Afrique, vers la Libye et peut-être ailleurs en Somalie. Donc nous pensons qu'il faut prendre nos dispositions Et c'est pour cela que nous venons au bon moment où Daesh a été battu au dernier combat. Il est en train de se déployer dans nos régions et il ne faut pas le laisser entrer dans nos pays. C'est pour cela que le soutien des États-Unis nous paraît très, très important et notre démarche doit être comprise. Merci beaucoup.
We have been attempting to combat the terrorism with our own means, whereas we see the United States involved in all of the world's regions, and we're coming to the United States as the largest, the most important country, the largest country in the world, most important country in the world. So the U.S. is involved in Libya, in Iraq, in Syria, and as far as the information reaching us at the moment, it's possible that elsewhere in Somalia there will be involvement as well. So at this moment, when ISIS has been defeated in this most recent combat, that's why we are here to request the support of the United States in order. So while it was beaten in the last combat, there is a movement of terrorists toward our countries, which is why this support of the United States at this point in time is so critical. Thank you very much.
Thank you to our panel. I want to just reiterate that last point of the minister, is that groups within the Sahel have proved resilient in the past. They have been weakened but have grown back. And one of the factors in that has been the external flow of arms and personnel and militants into the region. As ISIS and al-Qaeda are squeezed in their strongholds in the Middle East, there is every likelihood that they will seek to move to a more permissive security environment that would be to Libya, to the states of the Sahel. And the United States has every interest in helping those countries fortify themselves against those inflows of fighters, ideologies, arms, and new destructive tactics. I do want to say, I don't think the G5 could have a better set of spokespeople than we have had here today. I want to thank you all. The U.S., again, has every interest in seeing the G5 succeed, and there is some hesitance, but I think ultimately it is in the U.S. interest for this initiative to succeed. It is in the interest of the European Union. It is in the interest of the G5, but also of the much greater West African community. And my hope is that this investment and this interest will compel the states of the region to take on the difficult issues of put pressure on each other in terms of combating corruption, in terms of investing in education and development, because again, this is a matter of global security and one that we want to see succeed. So thank you so much to all of our ministers. Please join me in thanking them.